Here is the dilemma for Democrats. Their young people, their key constituency, not only don't like their own civilization, they like the wrong one. They actually think Hamas is a liberation movement. They chant for the Houthis. They're chanting, "We will honor our martyrs" at Yale. They're looking for love in all the wrong countries. At an AOC Bernie Sanders rally in Idaho last month, someone threw a Palestinian flag over an American flag, and the crowd erupted in approval. What should have happened after that is one of the adults on stage should have told their young, loyal followers, this is not a symbol of freedom. This is.
When Bill Maher finally loses it, what happens? Think of it like your uncle at Thanksgiving dinner, but with a sharper sense of humor and less gravy smears. Because it seems that expressing affection for your nation is suddenly a contentious act. You receive a verbal barrage directed directly at AOC and the Democrats. Maher simply grabbed a microphone, lit the fuse, and threw the grenade straight into the liberal echo chamber, proving that politics may devolve much farther. Before Twitter attempts to ban him for the 47th time this week, you should listen to what he had to say.
Robotic tripods could be vaporizing New Jersey. Democrats would point out how the death lasers were disproportionately affecting low-income communities and people of color. And AOC would tweet, "Stop demonizing the Martian X community."
Bill Maher finally snapped, but not in a live TV meltdown kind of way. No interns were yelled at. Instead, it was the classy comedian-philosopher version, where sarcasm cuts sharper than a guillotine. The target. Oh, they never saw it coming. Who would have guessed the guy who spends half his time roasting conservatives would suddenly turn a flamethrower on the progressive wing of his own ideological sandbox?
As a Democrat, you were there with him, but he does seem to be the voice of reason in that party these days.
No question, and he was 100% correct when he said it on air the other day, and I couldn't agree with him more. The fact is, you don't see them marching in the streets or storming buildings in support of Laken Riley, who was murdered by an illegal immigrant, or for Edon Alexander, who is now rescued from captivity.
Let's get one thing straight. Bill Maher didn't just criticize the Democrats. He went full scorched earth. His target, AOC, and the broader culture of left-wing despair. He didn't just poke. He obliterated the effigy of modern progressive patriotism, performance art piece so unbearable, it grinds teeth and sucks souls dry. In his view, it's not about love for the country anymore. It's about the lack of it.
If the thought leaders in the Democratic Party keep encouraging and not rebuking the idea that America is cringe and the people who run Gaza are great, the Democrats are doomed. Alyssa Slotkin's right. Liberals are weak and woke, especially the white ones, and they indulge all sorts of nonsense from their kids. So talk to your children and remind them, you don't really want to live like your heroes in Hamas. All the you do all day, it was all made in America. Your smartphone, your Grubhub, your freedom to bitch about America, that's all American.
This wasn't just political commentary. It was a eulogy for common sense, hosted by TV's last remaining sane liberal. Maher didn't merely critique the Democrats, he dismantled the holy trinity of leftist self-righteousness, endless grievance, competitions, Olympic-level victimhood, and the attempt to cancel America as if it's a problematic Netflix series. It's the kind of mindset where no one's content unless they're publicly miserable.
I'm standing up to my withering questioning about the Republicans. Now let's get to the Democrats. Okay. Now here's the problem for all the people who are upset about what the Republicans are doing. This was in the New York Times of all places this week. Democratic parties. Many Americans say they do not believe the Democratic Party is focused on the issues that matter most to them. So if you think all this Trump stuff is going to go away because the other party is going to come in, well, that may not be.
In Maher's world, loving your country doesn't mean dressing as a bald eagle at a monster truck rally. It means acknowledging nuance, recognizing that while America has its flaws and plenty of them, it's still the place where you can tweet your outrage while sipping imported coffee under air conditioning. But even that is offensive now. Maher didn't just criticize performative activism, he incinerated it, pointing out how the American flag has become less a symbol of unity and more a red rag waved in front of progressive rage bulls. Waving it. That'll get you side-eyed faster than skipping pronouns at a vegan co-op poetry slam. Maher didn't need AOC in the room to tear down the ideology she represents. It wasn't personal, it was ideological. He took aim at the relentless virtue signaling and the America is irredeemable narrative. Patriotism, to Maher, isn't the enemy. If your vision of progress is convincing people that their country is a dumpster fire of oppression, then you're selling despair wrapped in virtue? Maher wasn't buying it. In fact, he was returning the whole package with fire.
Finally, Nero, let's hear it for Democratic politicians who keep it real. Senator Alyssa Slotkin of Michigan says Democrats are, quote, weak and woke and should get some goddamn alpha energy and need to retake the flag. I gotta say this.
Bill Maher, ever the equal opportunity offender, had enough of the over-the-top performative outrage and constant America botchinga pastime that seems to be the left's new favorite Olympic event. Essentially, he called out the hypocrisy, shouting, maybe hating the country that gave you freedom, fame, and a verified Twitter account is a tad ungrateful. He didn't need to name AOC directly because her activist theater politics were splattered across his critique like a Jackson Pollock painting made of TikTok, filters and student loan debt. Maher has grown tired of the narrative that paints America as a dystopian disaster where nothing has ever gone right since the first Pilgrim stubbed their toe on Plymouth Rock. It wasn't just the moralizing tone or the endless apocalyptic Twitter threads that irked him, it was the smugness, the chronic victimhood and the lack of nuance. To him, it's all been exiled, leaving behind a mindset where praising America makes you 5 minutes away from launching fireworks off a monster truck while shouting conspiracy theories.
Finally, Nero, let's hear it for Democratic politicians who keep it real. Senator Alyssa Slotkin of Michigan says Democrats are, quote, weak and woke and should get some goddamn alpha energy and need to fucking retake the flag. I gotta say this. I love this new trend where politicians say fuck and shit.
Maher, the OG liberal allergic to nonsense, dared to highlight the irony of the relentless America bashing. Here's a country where you can openly protest without consequence. Yet it's labeled as a fascist state by those who wouldn't recognize actual fascism if it stared them in the face. He picked apart the contradictions. Anti-capitalist influencers cashing in on Instagram, the left turning patriotism into a dirty word, and a culture where saying you love your country is akin to a cry for help. Of course, AOC represents the apex of this moral kabuki theater, whether it's donning cryptic socialist slogans on a $30,000 gown, or framing every policy debate as a battle between good and evil. The message is clear. The system is broken. But please like, follow, and subscribe. Maher dissected it all with surgical precision, calling out the theatrics and reminding everyone that actual patriotism doesn't require a costume.
Senator Slotkin is a serious person. She's a former CIA agent. You know how every streaming action movie now is about a soccer mom who used to be in the CIA? Okay, that's really her. So we should listen to her because she's right. Lady Deadpool is right. Democrats should reclaim the flag and then get it clean because someone's been humping it.
Maher saw through the cosplay, tearing into how some politicians treat America like Voldemort, unmentionable, unforgivable, yet their ticket to fame. And he did it without shouting. Armed with just a smirk, a camera, and 2 decades of watching the left implode. Maher skewered not just AOC but the entire aesthetic of the new progressive movement, perpetually outraged, culturally drained, and proudly pessimistic. He mocked the crowd that apologizes for celebrating the 4th of July but throws 5-minute TikToks for National Avocado Day. The kind that deems pledging allegiance fascist but sees overpriced candles as revolutionary. But Maher's critique wasn't just cultural, it was strategic. His point: constant negativity and self-flagellation don't win elections. You can't govern a country you're busy convincing everyone is a dumpster fire.
I don't think I've used the word progressive. I think I've said woke. I think there's a big difference between woke, but words migrate, and it went to something else. I think there's a big difference between an old school liberal and a woke person. You say progressive Democrat. How do you describe this?
I didn't leave the label. It left me. After it happened on October 7th, I was really knew that that whole progressive stack would be blasted apart.
How do you explain that, if you can, that the people who consider themselves the most liberal have abandoned Israel for the people outwardly say they want a genocide? Why do you think that is? And will this split the Democratic?
Instead of hope, the Democrats' new pitch is a TED Talk in grayscale, all grievance, no gratitude. Maher reasonably asked, how is that supposed to build a coalition? If the average voter hears your message and thinks, so, you hate the country and blame me, cool, I'll vote for the guy who at least pretends to like us, your strategy might need reworking. Maher wasn't just roasting bad marketing, he torched the performative nonsense that now passes for progressivism. He highlighted the irony of a movement obsessed with renaming schools while ignoring that many kids can't read, of activists focused on optics while policy takes a back seat, and of a generation more eager to cancel statues than fix water pipes. To Maher, this obsession with symbolism is a distraction from substance, a trade-off that has cost the left its credibility.
Let me get back to the border issue politically, because I feel like this is a disaster for the Democrats. They look like sanctuary city hypocrites. They were the ones who said, look, we're the compassionate people. Everybody should get a shot here. And then when they started sending, I mean, the quotes from Eric Adams, this is the mayor of liberal New York, this issue will destroy our city. The governor, if you're going to leave your country, go somewhere else. Keep walking, is from the governor of New York. They put out a flyer, says New York is one of the most expensive cities in the world. You are better off going to a more affordable city.
Bill Maher has never been one to shy away from controversy, and his recent comments about gratitude stirred up precisely the kind of outrage that's become a hallmark of modern discourse. For daring to suggest a nuanced approach to patriotism, he committed what some might consider political heresy. Maher knows how this game is played. The moment you criticize the left, you're branded with labels meant to discredit, whether it's being dismissed as a centrist grifter or ridiculed as a relic of the boomer generation. The script is predictable. Yet, predictability doesn't faze Maher. He isn't seeking validation from social media clicks or auditioning for BuzzFeed's next progressive think piece. His goals are simpler and, arguably, more earnest. He wants a nation he can recognize. Flawed as it may be, in his critique, Maher didn't wax nostalgic for a bygone era of unblemished American exceptionalism, that America never existed. Instead, he spoke of a real, imperfect country striving toward something better. A nation built on the idea of progress but often tripped up by its own divisions. The heart of his argument was that it's entirely possible, perhaps, even love your country while acknowledging and addressing its flaws. Loving it doesn't mean ignoring its failings. And working to improve it doesn't require a constant state of disdain. He pushed back against the growing tendency to conflate perpetual cynicism with moral superiority. Hating America 24/7's, he argued, isn't the intellectual or ethical flex some believe it to be. In fact, it's counterproductive, a form of performative nihilism that substitutes indignation for action and posturing for progress. Cynicism, Maher reminded his audience, isn't leadership. It doesn't inspire change. It immobilizes those who might otherwise drive it. Patriotism, Maher declared unapologetically, isn't a crime. It's not an archaic relic or a mask for systemic oppression. Properly understood, it's a call to action, a mandate to build something better rather than tear everything down. This wasn't a plea for blind unity or saccharine platitudes that ignore the country's real and pressing challenges. Maher didn't offer bromides. He issued a challenge. With his characteristic blend of wit and candor, Maher lit a fire under the status quo. He called on the left to rethink its strategy, to move away from alienating rhetoric and embrace a vision that inspires rather than divides. His words weren't a lament for what's been lost, but a demand for what could still be gained. To Maher, the path forward doesn't lie in relentless cynicism but in daring to hope, to act, and to lead. It's an invitation, not to return to some mythical past, but to forge a future worth believing in, a country flawed, yes, but capable of greatness.